Hey, what's up guys? Today we're going to test Psychonauts 2 and we're going to start with the time to run. So let's go. So as you can guys see, the game takes around 4 seconds to load up, which is pretty impressive for a game of this size. Double Fine has done very good optimizing the startup of the game, I suppose inheriting that from the Xbox Series S and X. We start up here at the load screen by checking real quick into the options, setting up the MSI Afterburners. So here we are set, just making up the environment so we can track performance on the top of the game. So we start here where you see the main menu, fairly plain options, resume game, quick, settings, and extras. So we're gonna hop over to settings and check start with the input methods. So with the input methods, we just tested and both controller and mouse and keyboards are accepted, and they offer a plethora of options to modify the keybinds. So actually when you use the controller, you can actually individually modify the keybinds just like we're checking here on the test screen. That is pretty impressive for a small game like Psychonauts 2 compared to other big games that actually don't allow you to do this. You have the typical options for the sensitivity, some other options to ease off, let's say the game difficulty in controller because of the lack of, buttons in this case. So a controller, as you may already know, has less buttons than a mouse and a keyboard. For the accessibility features or assist features, you can see some gameplay modifiers, to say it in a way, language, subtitles. Accessibility features, for me, they are a nice touch of options for users that may require a bit of help to complete the game. I personally appreciate these for gamers that may have special requirements and just want to have fun. Display settings, we see the typical windowed, borderless, and full screen. This is fairly standard in games today. There's also something happening with Universal Windows Programs, UWP, which for some reason are also Microsoft Store games, which they're not really full screen. When you press the Windows button, you can see that the game's still running on the background. It should minimize, but that's okay. We see that we have some typical options: VSync, max frame rate, motion blur, and brightness. They're not too complicated, and I believe because the audience for this game, the main audience, might not be a typical hardcore gamer, but just a guy or a person that just wants to have fun and pass the campaign with the easiest options possible. When we go into the graphic settings, as you can see, we're testing actually here the full screen method. We just press Windows and you can see that the game does not minimize. So now we're going to go into the graphic settings. For the graphic settings, we see a fairly good options, like a fairly good list of options here. You can see resolution, anti-aliasing, detail, distance, textures, lighting, shadows, ambient occlusion. That is fairly good. Reflections, post-processing. You have the ability to do a custom method, so you put your own settings for each one. For audio settings, we see basically a typical balance. You don't know if it's stereo, if it's surround sound, just basically plain and standard. Audio and just balancing, like a mixer, basically. So we go into the game, we're gonna start for the performance. So we open our Afterburner monitor, you can see now the frame rate, the frame time. For the performance, we are having noticeable stutters and frame drops. In defense of the developers, they have sent a tweet mentioning that they're working on a fix and they are supposed to having a fix for this soon. You can see how the frame just drops in certain areas, especially when it starts. So I'm gonna read the tweet for you guys. The tweet says, "We are aware of an issue affecting some PC Psychonauts 2 players wherein the game appears to hitch when new shader permutations are rendered for the first time. These may affect players with various hardware specs. We're working on a fix and hope to implement it soon. This will be most noticeable when punching objects throughout the world, so if you smack something and the game acts up, it's not super meta fourth wall breaking psychic power, it's just shaders and stuff. Also, we can see that the game is heavily dependent on single thread performance. As you can see, one of my threads is completely 100%. So you may come into some minimal issues when streaming. There you go. So thank you guys. Remember to like and subscribe. See you in the next video, guys. Bye.